welcome to this jazz guitar lesson. I'm Chris Whiteman, and thanks for joining me. Today is part 2 of our exploration of Kenny Burrell's treatment of Satin Doll from his record Lotus Blossom. And we went through the first half of the tune. We did the introduction and the first 2 A sections. And now we are going to look at the bridge and the final A section. All right, so I'm going to play the bridge. It's 8 bars. I'm going to do it in time with the metronome at 96 beats per minute, and then we're going to come back and talk about all of the voicings. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that is the B section, or the bridge, and he is starting with a G minor 11, G, D, F, and C, and he starts on the end of beat 4, so it's a syncopation. 1, 2, 3, 4, and, right? And then he comes down the melody, B flat, A, and then he plays G, but he harmonizes it with a drop 2 third inversion G minor 7, right? This G minor 11 is built around root position G minor 7, right? And he puts the 11th. That is your third inversion G minor 7. He walks back up, A, B flat, moving back into the G minor 11. Melody walks back down. And then this time, instead of G minor 7, he plays C9, or it looks like G minor 6, or it looks like E minor 7 flat 5. But if you wanted to see it as C9, and that's what the harmony of the tune is, it moves from G minor to C7, right? So C9, and then we move up the melody back to A, to B flat, and he ends on a little F6-9, right? So I have A, D, G, C. It's my 3rd, my 6th, my 9th, and my 5th. And then he has this cool chromatic major 7 movement, which comes right from one of Ellington's arrangements for his band. They do this, and he starts on G flat major 7. So he hit F, 6, 9. Harmonically, he's thinking up a half step, goes to G flat, up to G to A flat, and then moves back chromatically to F, right? 3 and 4, and so what he's doing is just creating some interest, some movement. He starts on F, moves away from F, and then comes back to F, right? And those voicings are just major 7 voicings, right? So they're drop 3. So I have G flat, F, B flat, and D flat. It's your G flat major 7, and then it's everything moves up a half step to G, up a half step to A flat, down a half step to G, down a half step to G flat, and then finally resolving back to F major 7, right? And then he hits a little A7 sharp 5, and that's to set up the second half of the bridge, which, just like the A sections, we said there's a sequence, right? D minor to G7, and then E minor to A7. The bridge is a sequence also. We have basically G minor 11, rough, approximating to C, right? C7, C9. And then the second half of the bridge goes A minor to D9, right? Although it's a little more nuanced than that in his voicings. So the second half of the bridge, 2, 3, 4, A minor 11, walk down to A minor 7, third inversion, exact sequence of what he did earlier. Walk back up, B, C, A minor 11, walking back down to C, B. Now he goes to D9, A in the melody, B, C, and then he finishes on a D minor 7, drop 2, third inversion. Bass player is playing G on the recording. If I put G in there, it ends up being a G9 sus. So, and then he jumps down and he plays this just 2 notes, G and D, and then E diminished, and then a G13 sus. It's a nice little harmonic phrase. Right? And then he plays, that's D sharp to E, to C, to D. And then that takes us into the last A section, which is just like the first A section with a slight variation of the turnaround at the end, right? So let me play the last A section, and then we'll go through and talk about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so like I said earlier, identical to the first A section, so we don't really need to spend too much time. We've talked about that in part 1. We have the sequence, D minor to G13, back to D minor. Move it up a whole step. Our little sub change for the A minor. Moving to D7. A minor 9, D9 at the 13, and then we resolve to C, 6-9, which we did before, again to this really beautiful F minor 9, E minor 7, and then this time instead of the A7 sharp 9, he uses, which we had in the first A section, or something like that, he uses A7 with a sharp 5. Right, so we have G, C sharp, F natural, that's your raised 5th, and A on top. And that is his entire melody treatment for Satin Doll. Again, the reason I chose this is that, when I was first studying jazz guitar, I was often given a lot of information without context. Oh, learn all your drop 2s or get a chord book and you memorize all this stuff. And, I could do it, I could memorize it, but I never used it. I didn't know how to apply it. And listening to Kenny Burrell, I remember listening to this tune and it really started to come together for me as far as understanding the application of drop 2 voicings or how to harmonize in a trio situation. I hope you get as much out of looking at this as I did 20 years ago. So thanks for joining me. Everything we went over is available as a PDF download with standard notation and tablature for my Patreon subscribers, and I'll put a link in the video description for those interested in exploring a membership there. And I'll see you next time.